Hello everybody here on TGI's football content here of my predictions for all of the domestic and European Cup final predictions will be on this video. And we do have the first matchup of my predictions for tomorrow's FA Cup final between Manchester City and Crystal Palace. And there's a lot to play for these two sides to win a silverware trophy by the end of the season. As for Man City, they're huge favourites to go and beat Palace for tomorrow. And we know that Man City have not been going through a very tough time this season in terms of not challenging for the first time since 2020 the Premier League title, because since Pep Guardiola has been in charge at Man City, they've been absolutely dominant every single season. Premier League champions of the Premier League champions of the Premier League champions 5 consecutive times. And now, 5 or 4 consecutive times later, this season's been very, very poor for Man City. They lost silly games of matches, got knocked out early on in the Champions League, not doing quite well in the Premier League, as they're now currently fighting for a place for the Champions League through the Premier League table at the moment. And they've got a lot to play for also in that as well, and also the FA Cup final for tomorrow. Their opponents will be Crystal Palace, however, and we know that Palace, of course, have never won a FA Cup trophy in their club's history. And what a way for Palace if they actually end up winning tomorrow and get a place in the Europa League for next season. Because when Palace have been a consecutive Premier League club now for 13 years, very stable in the Premier League since being promoted since 2013, they have not even qualified for European football whatsoever. And I know that Oliver Grasnia is a very good coach. Only won the Europa League against the Rangers when he was a Frankfurt manager way back in 2022. But now, as a Palace manager, I really think that he will give the Palace players, let's say, that belief and hunger, hopefully by tomorrow, that Palace could be the ones to go and win the game and win their first ever silverware and their first ever FA Cup trophy. But in my honest predictions for tomorrow, I don't think Palace will win the FA Cup. I think that Man City have got their say, that massive favourites, that they will be the ones to win the game. They've been through a lot all season with injuries, such as Haaland got injured as well, and De Bruyne is leaving at the end of the season. And what a way for them to try and actually win the FA Cup in De Bruyne's last season as a player for the Man City team after 10 years of service at Man City Football Club. So I'm going to go for a 3-0 victory for tomorrow for Man City. Very easy win, I think. And I feel Palace will go there for a nice day out. But as for City, they mean business to win the FA Cup. So 3-0 my prediction between City and the Palace for tomorrow. And now we move on now to the UEFA Europa League final between Manchester United and Spurs. As these two teams do not deserve to be in the Europa League final whatsoever. What a poor season that these two teams have had in the Premier League. United are currently 16th in the Premier League and Spurs are currently 17th in the Premier League. Only a position below that is the relegation positions. And luckily, United had enough points. Spurs had enough points all season to be safe for next season. But you cannot imagine United and Spurs to be in this position currently near the end of this season now, in 17th place and 16th place. And funny enough, they're playing each other in the Europa League final. But the thing is that the Europa League is not as competitive as it was, let's say, last season and the season before that, due to the fact that now the Europa League and the Champions League and the Conference League now, the competition's got a bit more better in terms of, let's say, the expansion, especially for the Champions League now. 32 teams every single season, upgraded now to 36 teams in the Champions League. And now you get the worst teams, like Bomba Glit, for example, to get themselves all the way to the semi-finals of the Europa League. And easily on paper, Spurs and Man United will definitely go and walk through these teams, these farmer clubs, definitely for sure to be, let's say, the favourites, of course, to be in a Europa League final for Wednesday in a couple of days from now. But in my prediction on Wednesday. I do not want Spurs to win this game because I'm an Arsenal supporter, and I really hope that Man United do a service for Arsenal and win the game, because Tottenham, every single season, they bottle it, and I think that on Wednesday, I don't think Spurs will win the Europa League. I think there will be goals between Spurs and United. I think Spurs will score, and I think United will score in that final on Wednesday. So in my prediction on Wednesday between Man United and Spurs, I'm going to go for United to win by 3-2 at extra time. Last minute goal. And I'm going to go for Harry Maguire. Did so well to score that last minute goal over Lyon in the quarterfinals of the Europa League. And I think Man United will be the ones with Maguire to score in the last minutes of that game to crown, hopefully, United as Europa League winners. Don't deserve it at all to play UEFA Champions League football for next season. But since we got this final between the Spurs and United, there's got to be a win in this matchup. So I'm going to go for United due to the fact that they've got more experience compared to Tottenham also in terms of trophies, because Spurs have not won anything since 2008. But Man United have won the Europa League in 2017, got to the Europa League final in 2021. They also won the FA Cup. They also won the League Cup as well, recently as well. Man United, despite them being poor in the Premier League, but domestic cup competitions, they are doing so good, they are in those. But in the league itself, they've been poor all season. But I think Ruben Amorim's team will win the Europa League, and I'm going to go for a 3-2 victory for United on Wednesday. Now we move on to next Saturday for the Championship playoffs between Sheffield United and Sunderland. And we know that Sheffield United, who came third in the Championship, while Leeds United and Burnley get automatically promoted into the Premiership. Sheffield United missed out on automatic promotion position, and they'll be playing themselves now in the playoffs. Did so well on beating Bristol in the semis, such as the Sunderland as well, to knock out as well Coventry City, to put themselves through to the finals at Wembley Stadium for next week also. But as of the favourites, I've got to say, in terms of the Premier League, let's say a little bit of depth comparison to Sunderland's, I think a lot of people would say that Sheffield United will definitely win that game for next week. But as of the Sunderland, however, they have not been a Premier League team now since 2017. They were relegated from the Premier League. And it'd be great for Sunderland to go straight back up again to the Premier League. The Premier League, I'm stuttering right now, but the Premier League. It'd be great, obviously, for Sunderland to beat Sheffield United and play Newcastle next season, because Newcastle have got no local rivalry whatsoever. And Newcastle are a real top team nowadays, comparison to it was in the 2010s decade when Sunderland and Newcastle were hovering around each other in that relegation dogfight, as they were the worst teams from that decade. But now in this decade, since Newcastle have now got new owners, and it'd be great for Newcastle to have a little bit of, let's say, local rivalry competition in the Premier League for next season. That's why a lot of people might think Sunderland will definitely be the right choice to be promoted into the Premiership. But in my honest predictions, in the game for next week, I think that Sunderland might lose, due to the fact that Sheffield United on paper have been, let's say, yo-yo club now for a few seasons now, from the Premier League to the Championship, to the Championship to the Premier League. And I think that the money they've got, comparison to Sunderland, in terms of, let's say, I know it's a lottery. I know the playoffs is a lottery. Anyone could beat anybody to get to the Premiership, but now it's more ruthless now. You see teams, for example, like Leicester, Southampton go straight back down and then go straight back up again. The same thing will go as well to Leeds as well. Go up and go straight back down again. And it's very hard now, I think, for teams to get promoted from the Championship to the Premier League and stay there. But since they got that resources comparison to Sunderland, due to the fact that Sheffield United have been a Premier League team very recently, I think Sheffield United will win at Wembley Stadium, and they'll win against Sunderland by 1-0 to put Sheffield United in the Premier League with Leeds and Burnley for next season, and then straight after that, they'll go straight back down. And now my predictions now for the UEFA Conference League final between Chelsea and Real Betis. As we know that Real Betis, they've got Antony on loan from Manchester United. Are they a threat to Chelsea? I don't think so. I think Chelsea definitely, on paper, will win the Conference League on the 28th of May. Because even when they qualified for that competition, I knew the teams in that competition were not really threat Chelsea in this competition. There's anyone competitive enough to really compete with Chelsea in the Conference League. And I think that their team is strong enough, in my opinion, to go and win the Conference League. And also they got to worry about as well the Premier League as well to try and get into the Champions League for next season. They're currently sitting in 5th position in the top 5 and qualify, hopefully, for the Champions League. That's their aim also under Enzo Maresca. And they also got a final and 3 days later when the season ends on the 25th of May. But in my prediction in that game on that day, I think that Chelsea will win 2-0 against Real Betis to win the UEFA Conference League final on the 28th of May. Now we move on to the UEFA Champions League final on the 31st of May between PSG and Inter Milan. And it's going to be a very boring final in my opinion, because PSG are not really a threat team personally in terms of their, let's say, the massive promise to actually win a Champions League trophy. Because through the years, PSG always get to the semi-finals or the final and lose because they got the money. They can win the Champions League because they've been invested now for the last 13 years as a real top team in France. And since those 13 years, since the Qatar owners have brought PSG, they have not really challenged and win a European trophy under their name. They do take on against Inter Milan, have won the Champions League in 2010 under Jose Mourinho. And that was 15 years ago when Inter Milan last won this competition. But in my honest predictions in that game at Munich on the 31st of May, and since PSG knocked us out in the semi-finals of the UEFA Champions League, Arsenal out, knocked Liverpool out, and also knocked Aston Villa out, that is momentum definitely for PSG. They're going to probably somehow win over Inter Milan, and I do think that Milan will lose the final, and I think PSG will somehow win the game by 1-0, and PSG will be champions of the Champions League. Inter Milan will be very defensive, very disciplined at the back, very disciplined. They're a very defensive team now, very strong at the back. Attacking wise, not a threat. Defensively, very stable. And the Italians are very good at that. They're a very good defensive team now. Even Arsenal, we played them in the Champions League during this season. We lost 1-0 to them at the San Siro. And they'll make it difficult for PSG personally, but I don't think Inter Milan will be that sort of team who will go and win the Champions League on the 31st of May, as PSG have definitely got that momentum now after being Arsenal and also Liverpool and Villa in the last previous rounds to try and get to the finals of the Champions League. So I'm going to go for PSG as champions of the Champions League going into the end of this season. That'll be it from us here from TGI Football, as I hope you enjoyed my predictions of all the cup finals near the end of the season now. And if you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want more of this content, please subscribe. Thank you for watching, and have a very good weekend, and have a very good couple of weeks for the finals to build up for the European finals and also the domestic cup competition finals. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video.